4 offenders were charged with federal firearm offenses for trafficking guns from St. Louis to Chicago. 84 guns were recovered in this operation, 2 of which had automatic conversion switches, and 4 of which had silencers, along with ammunition. And I'm going to turn it over to Ernie Cato. He's the chief of our Counterterrorism Criminal Networks Bureau. But before I turn it over to Ernie, I wanted to really close before I came back at the end. Over the weekend, we crossed the 10,000 guns recovered in the city of Chicago so far in 2021. I'm going to repeat that. Over the weekend, we crossed the threshold of 10,000 guns recovered in the city of Chicago by our Chicago police officers. Every gun recovered is potential life saved and also potential deadly force encountered by our police officers. So just want to thank the men and women of the Chicago Police Department for staying focused on the hard work of protecting the people of the city of Chicago. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ernie, and then we'll have Gil Calderon, and then we'll have Eleanor Gottridge, and then I'll come back for questions. Thank you.
You know, the superintendent tasked the Bureau of Counterterrorism to be focused, to focus on gangs that are terrorizing our community, to focus on drugs that are causing just multiple issues, not only through our neighborhoods, but throughout our country. Our goal is to be laser focused. And what you're going to hear today is exactly what's going on. The superintendent touched on, up to date, 10,000 guns have already been recovered. Gang investigation is going to touch on the multiple guns they've accumulated in less than a month. Less than a month. Narcotics, focus on one of the most toughest beats in the city. That's beat 1112 under Operation Spin Cycle. This is going to be an effort that will not stop. We will continue to go after these gangs of traveling vice lords. They were focused. That was one of our we focused on that gang. And we're going to continue to focus on that gang. Deputy Chief Calderon is going to speak on what he has been able to do with the ability to actually go after these guns. So just in the last 28 days, we're looking at total arrests in a combination of narcotics and gangs. 49 arrests, 49 solid arrests. We're talking about criminal drug conspiracy. We're talking about felony charges of those who actually possess handguns and selling handguns. Then we look at total weapons recovered in 28 days, 98. Let me say it again, 98 guns recovered in 28 days. So you know we're going to well exceed 10,000 guns this year. So again, the Bureau of Counterterrorism and a combination of narcotics and drug investigations will be laser focused. We're going to let Deputy Chief Calderon touch on a few things. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Gilberto Calderon. I'm the Deputy Chief of Gang Investigations Division of the Counterterrorism Section. Superintendent Brown in July mentioned and warned any and everyone that wanted to commit gun crimes in the city of Chicago, they were coming after you. Well, with today's case and the case that was closed in assistance with the U.S. Attorney's Office and ATF, there's a clear example of what we're doing. There was a case that we investigated in which weapons were dispersed out onto the street. We got that person. We then continued and went and followed all the way up to St. Louis, Missouri to find a source. This particular source was putting out guns in the streets of Chicago, which, as you know, are the ones that are causing all the crime. All these gang members that come into contact with these firearms. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's just the beginning. There's many more cases like this that are forthcoming. This particular case, in cooperation with the ATF, our great partners, was able to be successful because of our efforts that we did together and the commitment that we have by our officers to work with ATF agents and to continue not only to look and find the individuals that are putting out the firearms into the streets of Chicago, but also follow wherever it takes us and to get these people that are the source supply that are continuously putting out these weapons in the city of Chicago. So this particular case, we had 4 individuals that were arrested. One was here, 3 were here in the city of Chicago, and the ultimate source was out in St. Louis, Missouri. I can tell you this, that out of the 98 guns that Chief Cato just talked about, 84 weapons were recovered on this investigation. And there's many more like this cases that we are working on in the Gang Investigations Unit and the gun teams that were put together back in July by Superintendent Brown. And we'll continue to do that.
Ellen?
Good afternoon. As Deputy Chief Calderon said, and Chief Cato, we stood before you back in July and promised that we were going to be starting these gun investigation teams with the effort to stop the guns before they hit the street. We need to get to a place in our city and our country where young people are not openly carrying guns on our streets, in our schools, and at our parks. We need to shut off the flow of illegal guns into the communities. It's not enough that we recover upwards of 10,000 guns a year. That is remarkable, but the work that our gun investigation teams are doing is important to get those guns before they get into the wrong hands. Our teams hit the ground running after having received extensive training in federal and state firearms laws, investigations, and undercover operations. We are pleased to announce today that an investigation started by one of those newly created teams recently came to a close. That's Operation Richville. Think about the amount of ammunition that goes into 84 guns. 84 guns, and that is just one investigation, as Deputy Chief Calderon mentioned. The gun investigation team worked closely with the ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office once the investigation took them across state lines to St. Louis, Missouri. We are endlessly proud of the ongoing collaboration with our partners and look forward to continued cooperation to get these guns before you hear about them killing someone the following day. Thank you.
That will take a few questions. Yes. Yeah, all traveling vice lords started with some really good undercover work. Of course, we can't reveal any of the hows of what we did, but really good undercover work. It involves a lot of human sources, obviously, helping us understand how guns get from point A to point B. In addition, quite a collaboration with the ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office, particularly once we had indications that this investigation would carry us across state lines. How long it occurred, this team has been up since July, pretty fresh, several weeks of training, then they hit the ground running, and really to bring a federal case to fruition this soon is extraordinary. And it really speaks to the dedication and commitment from Chief Cato to Deputy Chief Calderon and Eleanor Gottrich's efforts in making sure we stem the flow of guns into the city of Chicago. Yes. But first big case, we've had individual arrests, but this is the first big case that, really you're talking about several different layers of federal charges, not just the gun trafficking, for example, and I'm just going to go through them because we skipped that part. So one charge, as part of all the charges, was for possession of a gun by a convicted felon. Second charge, transfer of a firearm to a person reasonably believed to be a convicted felon. Another federal charge, use of a firearm in a drug trafficking crime. That's a federal offense. And finally, obviously, the straw purchase of the firearm, which is dealing in a firearm without a license, with intent to ship without a license. So 4 very serious federal charges. While we like the federal system, we'll take the state system, but the federal system is a little more ornery when it comes to consequences, and we like that. We think that sends the right message to people trafficking in guns, really blood money for guns, and we think it's quite appropriate to take it when it qualifies to the federal system. Yeah. I think this is what it looks like. It's likely not cargo loads of guns coming in Chicago. It's likely built on relationships between criminals, and likely, 84 is a lot of guns. But that's likely the volume we're talking about on the high end. Likely a lot of one-offs, a lot of 6 and 10 and 15 guns at a time, all built on relationships. So until you get into these investigations, you really don't know where the trail would end, but likely a lot of trails end outside the state of Chicago, of Illinois, into bordering states, and likely into the southern states at some point. So we'll follow the trail wherever it goes. We'll charge you with the highest crime, with the best consequences. When we can't take it federal, we will. When we can take it to the state attorneys, we will as well. I'm going to defer, Gil, if you want to reveal. We're very cautious in revealing a lot about these cases because we got a lot more similar cases, but we'll try to answer as best we can. Gil, you want to answer a little bit more on detail?
So sure. Let me first start by, we're not going to get into the very specifics, but they were out throughout the city and in St. Louis. So there's just a combination of all the firearms that were recovered. However, this investigation was led us throughout the city, south side, west side, out in 25, but the firearms were seized in different locations throughout the city to include out of state. No, this was an ongoing investigation. Just as mentioned earlier, Superintendent Brown put these teams together, and then I came along to get them going back in July. So the investigation began sometime in September, around that time period, and just based on the volume, and actually great cooperation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in seeing and looking at what was happening, and we're able to act swiftly and bring these charges forth very quickly.
In process right now. And we'll get you a copy of the federal charging document that was released Friday. Make sure you have it before you leave. Get with Tom Ahern on that. So I think the operative word you used was we see this sometimes. We need to create volume cases. We need to create the capacity, and that was the point of creating a gun investigations team that was solely focused on gun trafficking, which we hadn't had that laser focus on. Just we recover a lot of guns, we charge people one-offs with federal violations of crimes, but the trafficking, the systematic getting guns to Chicago, if you have 10,000 guns recovered, they came from somewhere and likely possessed by people who couldn't otherwise buy a gun. So someone's trafficking for them, and we, I think, focus, and the point of this is focus on the source. So we want to really send a message to sources of guns that bring guns to Chicago. We do focus on the demand by taking guns off of people who are in legal possession of them, but this is about focusing on the source, which we think is part of the pervasive issue here in Chicago.
Final question.
Yes. Over 80%.
Okay, so,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
and 23,
Yes.
Canton's are,
So I particularly don't answer questions on comments from people that I hadn't heard those comments. Oh, did it up, so 4 times I will say I won't do it. So it's just 4 times the amount. I just don't think it's productive to go back and forth. You guys have spent a lot of ink and time writing about this. We want to stay focused on protecting the people of Chicago. That includes the police officers of this department, who 4 have died from COVID. And so we really see this as a life-saving effort for police officers. And we want to focus on that. These are real people whose families are grieving their loss. And we're staying focused on saving the lives of Chicago police officers. Part of that means following through on the vaccine mandate. Secondly, this is great work during all this conversation that we're talking about today as it relates to guns and gangs. This is great work. And this was in the midst of the mandate. This was something that came to fruition Friday. And over the weekend, we crossed the 10,000 guns recovered threshold. We're on pace to recover more guns than we have ever recovered as the police department in this city. That's amazing work. In addition, we're on pace to clear more homicides than we have in over a decade. Officers are focused on the work of protecting the people of Chicago, and I think that's got to be somewhere in your headline. You know, despite all of these conflicts that we're having over the vaccine mandate, the work of Chicago police officers is extraordinarily good to talk about. Their efforts at great risk to their personal safety, by the way. The trafficking in guns, recovering 10,000 guns, as we know with Ella French's death, is dangerous work for Chicago police officers. It's very dangerous work. We've had record number of officers shot at and shot. This year, last year, it continues. This violence against police officers continues. It's more than rhetoric. It's violence against police officers in this country. In Chicago, last year, it had a 500% increase of that type of violence, being shot at or shot. And to continue this work is extraordinary work. And I'm proud to talk about the things they do, because these are hardworking men and women who are dedicated to protecting the people of Chicago. The vaccine mandate is important, but they're doing the great work of protecting the city. Thank you very much.